I'm Bruce Fummey. Have you ever wondered what's the best castle in Scotland? The most visited castle in Scotland is Edinburgh, but today I'm going to tell you just a fraction of the interesting things about the best castle to visit. If you're interested in the people, places and events in Scottish history, then click the subscribe button at the bottom right of the screen. In the meantime, let me tell you some stories. There are a whole host of reasons why Stirling Castle is the best castle in Scotland. Partly it's the sheer density of our history that happened in and around it. From the esplanade here, you can look across to the Wallace Monument because it was at the River Forth crossing down there that Wallace defeated Longshanks' men at the Battle of Stirling Bridge. It was when Edward Longshanks was besieging this castle that Robert Bruce struck a deal with the Bishop of St Andrews over there at Cambus-Kenneth Abbey, a deal that made his resistance to Edward inevitable. It was to relieve this castle that Edward's son brought his English army leading to the Battle of Bannockburn. In the time of James I, the Albany Stuarts lived within view at Doune Castle just to the north of here, and it was in this castle that they received their fatal reward for their duplicitous actions. It was also here that the 8th Earl of Douglas met his fate, brutally murdered by James II. James IV was born here, and it was after the Battle of Sauchieburn, just a stone's throw in that direction, that James replaced the father that he defeated in that battle. It was here that James's wife, Margaret Tudor, held out against Scottish nobles in an attempt to keep custody of their son, James V. It was here that his daughter, Mary, Queen of Scots, held the most fabulous event imaginable to celebrate the christening of her son, James VI. The first, if you're English. And of course, it was in the church over here that James, the first truly British monarch, was crowned. After dispatching Charles I, Oliver Cromwell's troops fired from that steeple into the castle here. Jacobites in their turn later fired in the castle. You see, this castle has been the location of key events in every period of Scottish history. But in this short video, I want to focus on the 100-year period in which most of the current structure was built. There will be ghosts. In some ways, the walls of Stirling Castle are like the layers of an onion, each layer drawing tiers of conflict. The exterior outer walls here were built under Queen Anne to defend against Jacobite supporters of her nephew. And a step back in time, and the French spur was built to protect against Henry VIII and his attempts to consume Scotland in the infancy of Mary, Queen of Scots. But let me show you just a little bit of why this castle is so special. I'm now in front of James IV's medieval main gates, but where are you? I've had people tell me that they sit and watch these videos with their partner and a glass of wine. Others have said that they use them to pass the time as they sit in the toilet each morning. Others still have said that they listen on car journeys or when they're on the night shift. Behave yourself. Anyway, it'd be really cool if you give me a sentence to tell me in the comment section where and how you're watching this video. You just need to walk the ramparts to see how Stirling Castle dominates the landscape round about. Northwest towards the Highland line, down to the south where Robert the Bruce would do battle at Bannockburn, and of course northeast to where Wallace stood on that crag on the other side of the Forth, defying the English to cross Stirling Bridge. Not only that, not only could you see for miles, but you could be seen for miles. Okay, I accept that today you can barely see past the mechanical digger at the side of me, but normally, okay, occasionally, especially when the Great Hall behind me was painted in brightly coloured gold. Can you imagine how far and how brightly it shone on this hill from the time that it was built by James IV at the turn of the 16th century? And it wasn't just the Great Hall. The walls behind me were the great facade built by James IV. They were also painted in gold and at that time stood 5 stories high. People all around would have basked in the reflected sunlight from James's court. Now, I make extra videos for some of the folk who support the channel on Patreon, and I'm going to do a more in-depth tour for them, and I'm going to point out some of the features here and inside. You can get those extra videos by becoming a Whiskey patron. Just click the white tab up there. Otherwise, let's go to the inner courtyard. Now, if you come to Stirling Castle, then you could spend a whole day here, but I'm only skimming the surface in about 10 minutes. There's a whole host of places that we don't have time for, but standing here is why I think this castle's so important. Now, I told you that James IV built the facade that we saw in front, but he also built these accommodation buildings. Now, obviously, when I say he built it, he was a pointer rather than a digger, but you know what I mean. But the other side of the courtyard is the bigger issue. You see, this is the Great Hall. As I suggested, it was built for James IV in 1503. It would have been the largest secular building in Scotland at the time. Like the golden frontage, visible for miles around, it was meant to impress. It was what Theoden's Great Hall at Rohan was meant to be in Tolkien's fantasy. This was the height of medieval pomp. But it was also medieval pomp's last hurrah, because the Renaissance had come. Medieval great halls were so last century. So when James died at the Battle of Flodden, his young son was from a new generation. In my video, What They Never Say About Mary, Queen of Scots, I explained how James V came to be married to Marie de Guise, and I'll leave a link at the end to that video. You should definitely watch it. The point is that James V had made a bit of dowry cash, and he wanted to impress a high status French wife, so he built her this Renaissance palace. This is very different from that medieval great hall that his dad had built. On the outside, it had ornate carvings of Greco-Roman gods. On the inside, there was no great hall, but a series of 6 large rooms. 3 apartments for the king on one side and 3 for the queen on the other. Now, depending on your level of importance, trust or intimacy, you might be received in the outer chamber, the privy chamber or the monarch's bedchamber. Each chamber progressively more impressive, each onion layer more powerful and piquant. If you go inside, you'll see that they've left the king's apartments quite bare because James V also died young, leaving baby Mary, Queen of Scots inside and a rapacious Henry VIII banging on the door outside. Hence that French spur that we mentioned earlier. Hence little Mary's sojourn in France. Now, when she returned, she wasn't Mary S-T-E-W-A-R-T, but S-T-U-A-R-T. The Great Hall here at that time was still used. In fact, it was the venue for the lavish christening of Mary's son, who would be James VI. Now, there can be few of you that don't know that James grew to maturity as a boy king whilst his mother languished in English prisons. And it was when he himself had a son that the last building in this quadrangle was built. The chapel here was built for the christening of James's son, Henry. Henry? That's right. He named his first son after the father of the English queen he fully expected to succeed. Best be prepared, eh? He ordered that the existing building be destroyed in preparation for the christening, and within a few months a new chapel should be built to the same dimensions as Solomon's temple in Jerusalem. Not this time a grand hall, not the ornate carvings of Renaissance deities, no such idolatry. You see, since the time of his mother, Scotland had become Presbyterian. So this chapel is appropriately modest in its design both inside and out, to fit the times. I think that's what I like most about standing here in the inner courtyard of Stirling Castle. It's the fact that this courtyard tells a tale in the very buildings that surround you. These walls heard the story of 3 generations of Stuart monarchs as they succeeded James IV, the great builder. We see Scotland from the end of medieval pomp under James IV through the intricate and ornate Renaissance of James V and Marie de Guise, who from her apartments in this palace resisted the change to Presbyterianism that brought the simplicity of the building of James VI, who would become James I of England. This courtyard is only part of what you can see at Stirling Castle, but it encapsulates a 100-year period of transformation for the Stuart family and our nation. And if you listen, in the wider castle and surroundings, you can hear the song of Scotland. That video about James V and what they don't tell you about Mary Queen of Scots is coming up on screen now. Watch it. In the meantime, ha mbeidh dóchas gon bia láma alaibh. Cheery and Drasta.